All right. Call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone to the City Council special meeting, April 4th. Roll call, please.
Mayor White,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilmember Martinez,
Here.
Councilmember Ortiz,
Here.
and Councilmember Tipton.
Present. Please stand for the pledge.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda review.
No changes, Mr. Mayor.
All right. We'll move to item E, review and discussion of council rules and protocols and council code of conduct. Presentation, please.
Good evening, Mayor White and City Council. I don't have a presentation per se because I hope that tonight's meeting is more of a conversation with council about the council rules and the council code of conduct. But I did want to go over just a couple of preliminary items before we hear public comment and then actually discuss the documents. The first is that the expectation tonight is that you will direct myself to make any changes that you wish to the council protocols and the council code of conduct, and that we would bring those recommended changes to a future meeting for actual adoption. So tonight you're not taking any action. I did also want to point out that I have my colleague Rebecca Wilson on Zoom, and she is going to help me out by taking notes so that we hopefully don't miss anything that we'll direct. And then I also recommend that when we are discussing potential changes to these documents, that it's done and any direction is given by consensus. So not making changes based on what one council member wants, but what at least three of you would like to see changed. And the hope there is that if you all potentially reasonably agree now, that when it comes time to adopt the changes, that you'll also agree. And then I think that is all I had in terms of kind of preliminary information. So Mayor, if you want to open up for the comment, we can move on.
Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to council comments, review and action. Give us a little bit more of a presentation as far as the changes.
Well, what I'd like to do is just go through the documents and I'll highlight what I recommended be changed, hear from you to see if you agree, and then also hear what your additional recommended changes are. So starting with the rules of order and protocols, and I'm assuming you all have them in front of you, but if that's not the case, I can put them up. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. No, but you can all see what we're talking about.
For me, yeah, I don't have them. I didn't bring my tablet, so I'll just be following along with your presentation.
Okay, yeah, I'll then join the meeting and present my screen. So that'll just take a second.
What? The paper copy?
Yeah.
I said if it was available, I would get one. I didn't want to go overboard and print out kill trees for one copy. Because I did see it at home. I just did not bring my tablet with me today. Oh, thank you, Anne.
So does everybody have what they need? Because I can put it up on the screen. I just want to make sure everyone has it.
Have it up on the screen anyway, in
I can
case
do it with that.
anybody
Sure,
wants to.
yeah, I can do that.
After the meeting.
Yeah, I'll just join the meeting on Zoom. Just 1 second here. Okay, this should work. So we'll start with the city council rules of order and protocols. And as I mentioned, I'll just go through and highlight the changes that I recommend, but then also solicit your input on each of the different sections. So starting with the duties of the city council and the mayor, the section does just that. It explains the duty of the city council and the mayor pro tem. I don't have any recommended changes to this section, but I'm happy to hear anything council would like to amend.
One thing, I'd like to see actually the council piece adjusted to represent the districts as opposed to just saying whom shall be a registered voter residing in the city. Talk about the districts and talk about the fact that they have to be a registered voter in their district,
Okay,
as opposed to just in the city.
do we have the consensus for that change? Okay, looks like it. All right, anything else in this section? All right.
Do we want to give some kind of description as far as what those responsibilities are when they're representing the district and city as a whole?
Yeah.
I think it should be included also.
I see at least 3 head nods, so that sounds good. It's a good point. Our next section is meetings and notice. This section, I had some minor, verbiage changes, nothing significant that changes the actual content. But I'm happy to hear. And I will also point out that a lot of this is dictated by state law, so how meetings are conducted, how emergency meetings are conducted. But some of it is up to council discretion, so happy to hear any changes you'd like to make to this section as well.
I just have a question because it does say there that we convene at 6, but sometimes we've been meeting at 5:30, and I know there was like talk of doing the presentation starting at 5:30 as a regular thing we do. So should we change the language in here at all, or?
Yeah, we can. The way it was agendized last time was that the 5:30 was a special meeting and the 6 was the regular meeting, but we can certainly change the language to say that if there are a certain number of presentations, that the meeting will start at 5:30. If there's consensus for that.
I think so, because even it wasn't like 2 separate meetings, like we went right into the actual meeting.
Mhm.
It was before 6 o'clock for our regular meeting, so I think we should be clear about that.
Okay, yep, we can do that.
I think that's where I landed getting confused at. I thought it was just a presentation part and my understanding was if you didn't need to be here for the presentation or if you wanted to. And that's why I came at 6.
And I do think some of the public thought it started at 6 too, just based on when people joined, because it seemed like they didn't know.
I have one on slide 6. That sentence is not clear there. I think it should say 10 p.m. will be continued to the next rather than adjourned or regular. I think it should probably say special.
Which section is that in?
That's in page 4.
Okay. Oh, meetings shall convene promptly at 6.
What matters not completed by 10 will be continued to the next. It says adjourned meeting.
Okay,
I think that's probably not correct.
yeah, that is confusing. We can probably just omit that phrase.
Change it. Or special. The section C toward the bottom, written notice may be dispensed by council members who file for the clerk a waiver of notice. I'm not sure quite what that's talking about.
Well, the rules here say that if there is going to be a special meeting, that council members will be notified in writing. So this is just saying that if a council member doesn't wish to receive that written notice, they can leave it.
Okay.
Anything else here on this meetings section? All right, we will move on to the agenda. This is a section I think could use revisions largely because it's to me confusing, because it talks about many different ways that council members, or members of the public or different parties can add items to the agenda, but in my mind, when I read through it, there's conflicting information. So for example,
I did have something on page 5. I don't know.
oh, sorry, yeah, we
According to
can
that
go
section.
back.
Second paragraph. Presiding officer, is that the clerk of the board or is that the city manager? Who is that?
Which paragraph?
Second paragraph, third line there.
I see. Yeah, the presiding officer of the legislative body is the mayor or the mayor pro tem or the third in line for running a meeting. So that's what that's referring to. I mean, we could clarify that by saying what I just said, whoever's presiding over the meeting, something a little more clear.
Right. Thank you. On the agenda, I know it talks about the second one. Suggestion there. I'm not sure that needs to be changed at this point. I think as far as the mayoral power. Didn't notice there being any problems under that section, and so. And being as I'm the only one that's gonna be at large, kind of carry a different role from like city council, so I'm wondering if we want to leave that the same.
Yeah, I would just point out that in this section, it gives the mayor the power to add items to the agenda for discussion. And it gives other council members the power to add items or for discussion and the mayor to add items for decision. Whereas later in the same section, it says that two members of council can direct the city manager to add an item to the agenda. So it just has each section has kind of different requirements that I find conflict with themselves. So if the consensus here is that the mayor have the authority to add items for discussion and other council members, or I'm sorry, for discussion and decision, and the other council members for just discussion, I would recommend we make it consistent throughout.
Okay.
But I would want to see consensus for that prospect.
I think that makes sense, is to leave it that way. Like, probably into that makes sense.
Okay, and
And carry it through the rest of the.
I carry it through the way
Okay.
you're talking about, it's fine, but I'll
okay,
make a change on that. Just clarify.
okay. Are there any other suggestions regarding the agenda? How the agenda is created?
I have a question related to just clarity. So what you were just talking about, city manager receives a request by two council members, either verbally or in writing, that an item be added to the agenda. Items added in this manner will be addressed by the council if a majority of the council members present at the meeting votes to address the item. So the item goes on if two council members want it, but then there's a vote as to whether it gets addressed by the council members at that meeting. Is that what that means?
Which letter are you looking at?
B1.
That's what that says. And so it says that there, and that's if there's a draft agenda and then two council members want to add something to this draft agenda. That's how it would be handled. Then if you look at E, it says that any council member on their own can direct the city manager to place an item on a future agenda that's not yet been drafted. And I think that's where the confusion is. I don't think the city has a draft agenda and then an agenda. I don't think that they use this process, so.
Kind of, but not really, because he always has the agenda on his whiteboard, but that's. Yeah, and that's the draft.
Yeah, it's just when is that? When is it a draft and when is it
Right.
not?
It's on Friday, which he sends it.
Yeah, then it's fine.
Listen to that.
Well, and so that's a good question, I think, maybe for the city clerk. So at some point during the week before you finalize the agenda, we kind of get together and you say, this is what you want. Would that be the time when we say, yeah, that's about right? I think that's when it should be. Should we just call that That's when the draft has been approved.
Like Thursday afternoon.
Right. Pretty soon it's gonna be Wednesday afternoon.
Or you can leave that out altogether and just say, this is how you add an item to the agenda. And then, and with the understanding that at a certain point, the agenda is published and there's no more adding anything. But
It's a thousand.
That's fine.
Okay,
yeah,
okay. So we leave that out.
okay. Anything else regarding the agenda and how it's managed and created?
Page 8, item F. About the delivery there, the last sentence there. We always should include email it.
Yeah.
In person or by email.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Anything else? All right, so moving on to voting. I had one recommended, a couple of just verbiage changes, but one recommended change in E, which was this particular sentence doesn't necessarily comply with state law. It says that the continuance of an item stops the running of time in which action of the city council is required by law. And that's not always the case. There are times with, in particular, housing projects, project approvals where there's a set time to approve. And whether you continue or not doesn't stop the clock. So I just wanted to remove that sentence. I have consensus of council.
It's fine.
Okay, and then anything else in that section?
Was wondering if we need something in there about some recusing standards, maybe some clarification on that. What the rules are.
Okay, so when state law requires a council member to recuse themselves for financial conflict, is that what you?
Well, the financial and then just generally if you're, you have a vested interest or kind of what, the council wants us to move, whether it's state law or not.
Okay, so I would know what to add for the state law section. Can I get some direction as to what you would expect a council member to recuse himself outside of state law?
If it's something they're directly involved in, I mean. Makes sense to me.
Any other?
I don't know if we would want to put it in writing that way, but I feel like even the perceived conflict against us is something that we should steer away from. But I don't know that we want that.
Well-
Because that's so sweet, like up to interpretation, Like,
Yeah.
Perception is very.
Be careful.
It's not, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that is, entirely up to you. We can include that language. I do think you're right that perceived, everyone's perception is different. And that being said, I would say the entire code, no matter how it's written, will likely be open for interpretation, depending on who's reading it.
Okay.
Is that perceived language what council would like added? Or,
Sure.
I don't think it's so much of what we perceive, it's what the public, and then
Exactly.
we hear about it after the fact that, oh, did you know this or did you know that? And by that time, it's too late.
yeah,
But I do think it still like muddies the water anyway, because it's still holding us to somebody else's perception. So like,
Yeah.
it's kind of thinking out loud, but knowing that that word is problematic.
That's probably not the right word.
I think Councilmember Tipton's probably right, no matter who you are or what you do. As elected officials, someone is going to perceive what you do positively and somebody's going to perceive it negatively. We can put, my thought is if the decision will directly impact you as you, the elected official, and the state law says that direct impact has to be financial, but your code of conduct could make that direct impact something other than financial. I can't think of a great example at the moment, but I'm sure there are some that come up. So
I think direct impact is not bad.
that work? I see at least 3 head nods, so we'll go with that. And I'll finesse the language and then you'll see a draft before you have a chance to
That's
adopt.
great.
or-
Thank you.
Anything else with respect to voting? All right, the minutes, these are all, I didn't make any changes here. These are largely the clerk's duties. But does anyone have any recommended changes to the minutes? Okay. Next up is actions. This section talks about motions, resolutions, ordinances. I would recommend, and I can draft the language, the state law regarding adopting ordinances changed recently, and it didn't necessarily negate what's in here, but it offers some different methods of adopting ordinances that we could update this language to make it more correct.
Okay.
So are there any other changes from council on that section? Okay. Next up, we have motions. I recommend updating this section to comply with Rosenberg's rules of order. There are a couple of motions listed here that aren't even in Rosenberg's rules of order. They're in Robert's rules of order. Specifically the motion to table, the motion for previous question. And I also think this list here in your rules isn't complete. It doesn't include everything in Rosenberg's rules of order. So, I mean, my recommendation is just to almost eliminate this section and just say the city council follows Robert's rules of order.
Okay.
But that's up to you if that's how you'd like to handle that, or if you'd like this to just be a more complete representation of Rosenberg's rules, it's up to you. Are there any thoughts?
I think changing it and referring to the rules of order would be
Just a more,
the simplest way to handle it.
yeah. Okay. Any other changes to that section, motions? Okay. Next up, we have conduct of a public hearing. I don't have any recommended changes here. Are there any? Some of this is required by state law, but not all of it. So are there any recommended changes from council on this section? Okay. Moving on to public participation at council meetings. I do have some concerns with some of the public decorum section in terms of protecting the public's First Amendment rights. There's a couple areas in here that I think could be rewritten to better protect that free speech right. In particular, there's a couple of spots where it says that if somebody does X or says X, they'll be immediately removed, where state law would require that they be given a warning. And also, I think it needs to be a little bit more clear that there's a difference between conduct and speech, and that someone can be removed for conduct that interrupts the meeting, but not necessarily speech. So I think that can be finessed. If that is okay, I see at least 3 head
That's
nods.
fine. Yeah,
Okay.
some clarification.
Is there anything else in this section, public participation at council meetings that council would like to see changed?
I think I agree with your suggestion of removing this speaker cards.
Well, I was gonna make a suggestion about that, is maybe we leave in there, those speaker cards will be used for very large meetings and things like that. Because that's generally when we do use them. Because when we've got like 60 people in here, we have about something that's very controversial. That's where I've seen them used in the last couple of years. Because if we have a ton of people that are all wanting to speak, we enforce the speaker cards.
So,
We did use speaker cards just to have like order. But if someone wanted to come and speak without a speaker card, we can't deny them.
that's
Unless
true.
we have like, in the beginning of the meeting, you say pro is only gonna have an hour and con is only gonna have 1 hour, then you'd be able to limit them. But anyone could speak, whether they have a card or not.
And it's a little hard too with people online. keep raising hands, so.
Yeah, because in any public forum, you're pushing the limits of the fine line legally. If you're making sure that everybody is filling out that speaker form, you're not supposed to. So
Yeah.
I would say just remove it because in reality, that is just pushing that fine line that we have.
Yeah, it's optional, so Councilmember Martinez and then I believe Mayor White wanted to remove that or somebody, there was a second at least.
You can remove it, that's fine. Okay, yeah, okay.
So we'll remove the speaker cards.
But that begs the question, then, do we want to have something in here about a provision for very large meetings for limiting the duration and limiting that codified in the rules?
Is there a limit of 1 hour someplace? Is that, did I see that somewhere or?
Well, it's a 3-minute rule. I don't think that, and there's the whole picking of representative, which I don't think we've ever done. I've never seen us do that.
Right.
I don't remember there being a 1 hour or any other limit, but we can add language that says, you know, if there's a large number of speakers, the mayor has the authority to limit
And there, in
in the.
the mayor with the council has the discretion to reasonably limit the number of speakers of the duration of the oral comments on each agenda item.
Okay, yeah, I think,
No, that sounds like
I
a-
didn't think that with the cannabis.
Probably, yeah.
Cannabis, and it was. moving. But they did speaker cards, but people still went up and spoke without, so it just went on and on and on and on and on. Limiting it.
okay, yeah, and it sounds like that's already in there, so we can utilize it if necessary. Anything else in this?
I was wondering if we need to clarify, the Spanish translation and the 3-minute thing.
Oh, we can add that as well.
You might want to do that.
Okay,
It's in writing. People know that.
yeah, when you do and when you
The
don't,
translation is 3 minutes. If you have somebody else do it for you, it's double, so.
yeah,
And actually, there's a piece in here we need to be enforcing, which is the time for oral comments may not be donated or extended to a speaker from other speakers.
We haven't done that, I believe.
No,
Yeah, I don't-
it's codified in there.
Oh,
That's what I'm saying, is we haven't been enforcing that one.
I haven't seen that occur, but maybe it was before my time. Anything else in this public decorum section?
I have a question about the public comment stuff, because it's been commented about non-Greenfield residents calling frequently. But there is no limitation on that, right? Anybody that is able to call and make the call.
Yeah, yeah,
As long as it's something that we have. Believe we on our agenda.
yeah.
Unfortunately.
That's,
Yeah.
that's the perception.
Yeah.
anything else in this section? Move on. Next up is telephone participation. This section is largely dictated by state law, so I recommend that, and this law has changed quite a bit recently because of COVID and since, so I can update this section to comply with state law, but if there are any other requirements that you would like added, happy to hear those. Okay. This next section is related to public requests, proclamations, presentations. Anne did weigh in on just a couple adjustments to what the actual process is, but for the most part, this is what the city is doing, but happy to hear any suggestions as to how you'd like to change how presentations and proclamations end up on the agenda.
And can we put this to where maybe we're not doing it as often? Is that something we can change?
Like just once a month or something like, is that what you mean?
Maybe like once a month instead of.
Yeah,
Every
that's
meeting?
certainly possible. I think that's something staff may have discussed as well.
Yeah.
Is there,
I wouldn't. I would say each meeting come with its proclamations because there's a lot of things that we're not really acknowledging. And I did see that some of our proclamations were removed. And I did see now that Anne caught that. But I do believe that in order for us to really be involved with the community and really engage and be expanding or inclusive of our community, we really need to highlight these proclamations because these proclamations are not just for organizations that are supporting key individuals in the community, they're needed. It just changes the climate of a meeting. You've seen in the past, we've had meetings that are very aggressive, whether it's during the public comment, but as soon as we have proclamation, I mean, that's when the community unites. So for me, that's the way I see proclamations, a way to unite the community. It's not just to be handing them out like candy. It's literally you're acknowledging your community and the beautiful diversity community that you have in reality. So I wouldn't want to remove them or limit them to just one meeting per month. I would say every meeting should have a proclamation because again, it's a way to unite the community.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and explain why I said, once a month, because it does take a lot of time. And, I do agree with, the community needs to be involved. But many times there's no one here to accept them, and we've already extended a meeting longer, because they're doing all these proclamations, or maybe limit some of them, maybe to
That's it.
two.
You're already.
Yeah.
Two per meeting.
It's limited to-
Yeah, then that's awesome. Because otherwise it really extends a meeting and, we've been really fortunate that our meetings haven't been that long. But I know like some of the other cities, I think Soledad went to 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
Maybe we do that way, you said, though, and some, a representative who received the proclamation needs to be at the president's meeting.
Yeah, I think that, because I like the fact that they're giving these out. I really do, but when there's no one here, are they even watching? I'd really like to see somebody in person be here, and also we get to see who it is. And, when we can acknowledge them, we see them out on the street, we can acknowledge them, but sometimes you get them out and I don't know the names of the people that are getting them and, kind of a silent person. So that's my only reason.
Yeah, and the only thing that I wanted to add, I do understand that, Councilmember Ortiz. One of the things that I saw since I arrived in the council is that we do have a lot of repetitive proclamations, and that was part of the conversation that I guess I had with Ann in the beginning and several city managers was the fact that they were just kind of like okay, that's what we do every month. Let's just bring them forward. And so, I mean, things change in life, organizations change, you don't have that contact. And I know that that's one of the things that I did mention to Fabi, as she is our community liaison in a way, that she should be updating those contacts. And to be honest, when I bring proclamations forward, or I've written proclamations, because I think that's the beauty of being in council, and I would suggest to my colleagues to write up a proclamation, learn how to do one, and bring it forward. But it's also being that liaison where you bring that organization, forward. But sometimes we get busy, we can't contact that agency. So it would be ideal that Fabiola have all these contacts of the Alzheimer's Association, of the NAACP, and so on, but that somebody here who has that direct contact. So it doesn't just fall on us having to make that call and making sure that they're here to receive that proclamation. And I mean, you always have that agenda. It's an opportunity to not just ask questions about the agenda, but ask questions about the proclamation. Can I get to know a little bit more about this organization? Can I reach out to them? Can I have that contact? So at least you're a little bit more prepared once they do come forward and you understand why the importance of that proclamation.
Well, maybe we just go ahead and leave it the way it is as far as.
It's two. Yeah, I didn't even notice that, but it said two. That's good.
Yeah, we can enforce the two
Mhm.
that's already in the code. And then what about the idea that someone has to be here to accept it? Is that something the majority of council wants to see?
I think that would be great.
Definitely.
Okay.
I've got a question related to number 3. The last sentence says, when there's uncertainty in making this determination, the mayor will consult with the city council committee of the whole.
Yeah, I saw that phrase. I don't know what that means. I think it is,
Anybody know what that means?
I think it must be the whole council. I mean, but I don't know why they call it the committee of the whole,
They probably copied this from somewhere else.
I suppose, yeah.
My guess,
I did mark that in my draft as,
that should be changed.
Okay,
Okay, so it sounds like we'll leave it as is, enforce the 2 proclamations per meeting, and then also require that a recipient be here to accept it. Okay.
Great.
Cool. And then our next section here is travel expenses and reimbursement rules. I don't have any recommended changes here. Anything from council? Okay, next up, we have communication guidelines, mayor, council, manager, staff. This just outlines how kind of the hierarchy of the council, mayor, or council, city manager, and staff. Are there any recommended changes here? Okay. And we're almost through this document. Miscellaneous, this one talks about how council members don't have the authority to actually obligate or expend funds on behalf of the city. Any recommended changes here? Okay, and then last up, applicability. This section first delegates all of these rules to the city's other commissions, so they also have to adhere to these rules. And then it also talks about how these rules can be waived. So it would take a 100% of council to allow one of these rules to be waived. I changed the verbiage there a little bit because I thought it was a little bit confusing. And then that is all. So are there any recommended changes to this section?
Can I ask a question? Under the travel expenses and reimbursement, in the first paragraph, it says that the reimbursement of meals shall be reimbursed by the city based on submitted receipts. We go through we give per diem
Okay,
based by the IRS.
okay, we can change that to comply with practice. That. Okay. Anything else? Is there anything that isn't in this council rules and protocols that should be?
Should we discuss notifications on absences and things like that, or whether it should be something in advance?
You want something, notification of absences?
Yeah,
Okay.
should that be in code of conduct or should that be in the protocols?
It should be in the protocols, just because this is more about meetings in particular, and so what are you looking for?
I mean, just if at all possible, give advance notice that you're not going to be here. It just makes things less. So,
And who would you say should be notified? The
the
clerk?
clerk should-
Okay. Okay,
I would say the clerk, city manager, and you, just in case one of them doesn't see it, especially depending on how it's going to be notified.
so city clerk, city manager, and mayor.
I'm sure there's always extreme circumstances, sometimes, it does happen. But,
Just a clarification.
but for clarification, definitely.
Yeah, we can add language that, whenever possible, or, yeah, okay. So 3, I see 2. Yes, 3, okay. Looking at head nods. All right, anything else that should be in here that isn't? We'll move on to the council code of conduct. So same thing, I'll just go through and mention what I recommend changing and then solicit your recommended changes. The first section is the purpose. It just describes the purpose of the code of conduct. I've recommended one word change just for clarity. Is there anything that the council would like to change in this section? Okay. The second section is called policy, and it's broken up into a few different sections. The first being general conduct.
I actually did have one on the conduct of public meetings on your suggestion there. It should probably be council members.
in the rules and protocols? Or,
Conduct at public meetings. Page 2.
oh, okay, on the code of
Your
conduct?
suggestion there, you had council member.
Oh, gotcha, okay. Okay, gotcha, I see. Are there any recommended changes to just the general conduct? So these are the ones, council members must refrain from abusive conduct. Council member duties must be performed in accordance with the processes and rules of order.
Okay, so here we go. I'm not sure if it's in this part, but since there was such a big scene about council member, writing a letter, would that go onto this part where I think we need to kind of define that a little bit better, you know,
Yeah,
to prevent that issue and, you know, public outcry.
yeah. In my opinion, that would go under the council interaction with the public, because that section already does talk about how council members may conduct themselves on behalf of the city and when they can and they can't do that. So that section, the phrase that I think is most confusing in this section, I highlighted, and it's in D1, council members may use their title only when conducting official city business. I think that makes sense. For information purposes, I mean, I think, you know, that kind of makes sense. And then, or as an indication of background and expertise, that's the one that I don't quite understand. So I'd like to hear council's thoughts on that. And then it goes on to say carefully considering whether they are exceeding or appearing to exceed their authority. So that's where I think it's not clear when you can use your title. Because what does it mean to use your title to indicate background and expertise?
I have, again, I'm not sure if this is the right time, but I don't have a problem with writing letters of recommendation for people in the community. I think it's something that we should do from the council, you know, and I don't think anybody's gonna say, no, you shouldn't do that if it's for job or education or, you know, and we know that the person that we're writing the letter for, you know, is upstanding citizen and, you know, doing good in the community or something. So I'm not sure how you would word something like that.
I would have a concern with that, and it is that if you are, as a council, going to do anything as a whole, you have to discuss it in a public meeting, which means that you have to discuss this person's merits in a public meeting. And I think that could be problematic if you don't think they have merits.
So then what is your suggestion?
I do have a suggestion on that if you want. Maybe we should identify that we're expressing our own opinion and not the opinion of the majority of the council.
Okay.
Unless it's an item that we have discussed.
Mhm.
And it should be, you know, whether should be followed with both verbal and written communication.
So would you say it's okay for a council member to write a letter and say from council member Ortiz? So she can sign her title, but she would have to also say, I'm not writing on behalf of the city council.
Correct.
So you can use her title, but as long as you make that disclaimer.
Correct.
Is that,
Just clarifies it a little bit so it doesn't, there's no confusion about it. I would agree with that.
okay, I see 3.
I think it's just the wording and, you know, it makes a big difference. Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of disclaimer.
Any other comments on this topic? The letter writing? Okay. Are there any other parts of this section, which is the biggest part of this document, that council wants to discuss or has issue with? And these are just, it's generally the conduct of the council. So it talks about conduct at public meetings, conduct interacting with staff, what we just discussed, interaction with the public, and then also interaction with advisory bodies. Anything?
I think one of the things that I was looking for, Jennifer, and I was going back to when you talk about, well, not you, but this, code of conduct. It's not really specific, because I know in the past, we had issues, where we were told, not this council, past councils, that we were not allowed to talk to the media. Only certain individual was to talk to the media. But now media does whatever they want. If they want to talk to you, they're gonna talk to you. They don't care if Paul Wood said, just talk to the mayor. So I think that's part of the thing that I was trying to go over and read, and I don't know if I was just tired, but I didn't really see like we really have that fine print. Because we could say that it's here in writing, it's part of our code of conduct. If you have, we're literally the faces to the city,
Mhm.
and the media is gonna pick whoever they want to talk to. It doesn't matter if you keep on sending them to the mayor, it doesn't matter, whatever. And other scenarios too, when you're being I guess under the lights of this media as well, they're just gonna go after you. And then also, I feel like it's, I guess my wording is, how do we make sure that we are specific when it comes to an issue happening in the city of Greenfield? Who is the direct contact or that spokesperson? Because we don't have that PR that we had at one point with Bonilla. So how do we deal with that? But then also, how do we deal with us? And I guess I was trying to tie it back into the confusion that you had as well, because there was my confusion of D, number 1, which council members may use their title only when conducting official city business for information purposes or as indication of background or expertise. So that kind of came to my mind thinking, well, maybe when you're approached sometimes, because for instance, the whole fentanyl issue that we had, I know that Univision did reach out to me wanting to talk to me about you as a councilwoman. How is the city of Greenfield dealing with this? How are you dealing with this? And the reason why they decided to go and interview me was because of the youth programs that I've done in the past. And I still have a youth program working with certain high school students. So I guess that's the conflict too. Then I don't, because I'm constantly a target, I don't want to be that target again of like, oh, here we go again. Councilwoman Martinez is talking to the media, is doing that. But it falls into that area of expertise that the media is going to pick whoever they want to talk to. So how can we have that in writing? How can we make sure that that is highlighted? Because when it's beneficial to the city, then they throw the cameras your way. When it's not beneficial to the city, then they want you to have a certain protocol. And I'm just going to call it out as it is.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's a good idea to have media protocols in here. And what those are is really up to council. I mean, in my mind, it should be parallel to what's already here, in that if you're speaking on your own behalf or even as not as a representative of the city, again, you can use your title. But just making clear that you're speaking as Councilmember Martinez, not on this behalf of the entire city. Unless it's a position that's been adopted by the whole city, in which case I think that would be fine. But that's my take. So I'd be happy to hear what council thinks, and we can add something in here.
No, and I think I get that. I do get that. I guess my wording is just not coming out correctly. And then bear with me, I'm just coming back to work today. It's, how would I be able to say it? When media reaches out for whatever reason, it doesn't have to be specifically to anything. I know in the past, under in the beginning when Manager Wood started, but also with Jaime Fontes, and because of the whole turmoil, I don't know if you remember, and it was said to us that only the mayor would be the spokesperson at the time, regardless of whatever the issue was. If it was cannabis, if it was somebody broke their hand, up to the mayor. And that's what we all did, right? But then I think things shifted where I still did that. If any media came my way, I was sure, and you are a witness to me, to this, Paul, that I would always send it your way. Here, talk to the city manager. He will let you know who to talk to. But I feel like now it's up in the air where, because of all the gossip and dirty politics out there, they just throw media my way. And when I say they, sometimes city staff, and Ann has been awesome when I could email Ann and say, Ann, can you please let city staff know, like, I am not going to talk to anybody. So I feel like that's it's a sword of, and
Double-edged.
yes, wedge in a way where, I'm just like, let's set it in stone. This is what the protocol to follow.
Yeah, I mean, that's another option is always directing them to the mayor. I don't know if that's what this council wants to do. I mean, if it's a technical issue, you probably do want to direct them to the city manager so you can get them a technical answer. If it's like a, public works water line break or so, things like this. But really how this is handled is up to you all. So you can add language to your code of conduct that explains it. Cause it sounds like that's what you want is just clarity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
clarity, and also that we could have it in paper and let media know, like, this is the process to follow.
Mhm. Thoughts on,
A really good example today, that a company sent me. There was, the organization, I think that, Councilmember Martinez is involved in. Is a really good organization that there was a media release today. And I was sent a clip of it from, chemical company in Salinas. And, it said, that there was a lawsuit against the county and the state because of chemical use. But it said, there was a quote from, I can't remember what your job title is.
Community organizer.
Community organizer and city council member. And so they said, oh, so you guys are, in this lawsuit. And I said, no, we're not, but again, it wasn't because I don't think she put it in there, the organization put it in there and just put in there, but it still left that impression out there that the city was involved in it and we're not.
yeah, I mean, those things, I don't know if you can
Things like
avoid.
that can come up, but I think those things can be attractive, maybe.
Yeah,
Be asking for. I don't know how you want to go about.
yeah, I mean, I think you can reach out to the media organization and ask them to,
Because you're going to print whatever, they're going to print whatever they want to print.
yeah, that we can't solve.
Yeah, but it was just, an example.
Mhm,
It can just be, things construed right away.
mhm.
And see, that's the thing too, and thank you for bringing that up, Councilmember Ortiz. The fact that regardless, if I'm here, if I leave council in November, if Yaneli does anything, if I open a strip club next year, I'm still gonna be tied to the city. People just don't understand that, and even now, it's like former Mayor Huerta or Lance Walker, you name it, you're always tied, and people don't make that separation. And it's just something hard, and I don't know if we'll ever have legislation passed to be able to kind of separate that. But media does whatever they want to do. I did read that code and I was like, oh, here we go again. I'm gonna get that slap in the hand. But I mean, you tell media this is off record. This is my position. But if they want to tie you to your other powerful position, because this is a powerful position that I'm in, I mean, I definitely could go back and tell the media without getting too much into detail. Exactly this. This is me. This is not the sentiment of the city, but this is the continued argument that we're going to have, not just today, but for many years to follow. And so it is what it is. But yeah, going back to that, exactly that. We have good media that obviously council members are applauded, but then we have that negative media that you're pretty much left alone with the media. So for me, I just feel like as a city, I felt alone at times when it comes to media. So I wouldn't want any other council member in the future to feel neglected or not backed up in a way. And I'm not saying like you're going to defend me, but at least you're going to let the media know. Yes, I know that you want to talk to this council member for whatever situation, but this is our protocol to follow. You send a format email or whatever the case might be directly to the city manager, city clerk, even our legal counsel, and then you'll relay that information to the individual council member, and it's up to us if we want to answer or not. I guess that's what I'm trying to get. I know my wording is everywhere, but that's just the
Yeah.
messaging that I wanted to
No,
relay.
I mean, I think I understand you just want clarity and protocols. And I think unless council has a really clear idea what they want to see. I think what we can do is look at what other cities do in that respect and just bring back some ideas. If that works for you.
And I think, yeah, because, and I hate to bring it up, and I know Paul looks at me like, be quiet, Councilmember Martinez. When I bring up Bonilla did good for the city, but at times we paid a lot for nothing.
Was it a PIO?
Yeah, PR. So that helps the city, because that's the first person that they'll have contact, and they kind of go and just clear the airway. And we don't have that right now. I guess we don't have that filter to help alleviate.
I am fine if you want to put down the mayor and the city manager as points of contact. I mean, I have no problem with that.
I think that would be good.
Regardless of the case. Whether it's the city of Greenfield open a new business or Councilmember Martinez open a strip club, direct the contact to you.
I'm happy that.
That's good.
I do feel like it is clearer in there, you know, under D6 about the personal opinions, and it already does say that we can only make statements clarifying that we're not presenting the official position of the city. I think that's pretty clear in giving us a directive about how to express our opinions and when giving our titles, but
Yeah, it just
hopefully
doesn't
not with a
specify.
disclaimer. Yeah.
Yeah, just doesn't specify that includes the media.
Yeah.
So maybe that's where we want to add that these protocols, so council interaction with the public applies also to interaction with the media. Is that
I would say so,
okay?
especially the way we're headed with social media and everything, yeah.
Okay. Anything else here in this section?
Under the enforcement section, on page 5, I am fine the way it was set up in the past. It was only mayors in charge of the investigation, whether they investigate, not necessarily enforcement. So, I mean, I think it's worked well. I think we should just kind of leave that about.
You're talking about the report?
Talking about G, page 5,
G2 really, yeah.
be under confidential information.
So, so currently the way,
Recommended maybe that be changed, and I kind of think it would be better just to leave it alone.
okay. I mean, just the way, I'll just explain the way the enforcement is set up now is that a complaint, I mean, presumably from the public, but it could be from a staff member or a council member. If there's a complaint against a council member, it will go to the city manager or the city attorney. And then the city manager and city attorney together determine a course of action. I think that's challenging for us because we don't have any authority over you. So, and we're also your employees, so it's a little awkward, to be honest, to have to enforce against the council or any individual council member, especially when we serve all of you as a body and not any individual. And so I mean, then the next step, if we determine we have nothing that we can do, which I can't think of an instance where we would be able to do something, unless it were, I mean, if it was such a minor complaint that we could just refute it, I suppose. But then we bring that to the mayor, or if the complaint's against the mayor, then to the mayor pro tem to determine what to do next. And so it sounds like the mayor's okay with being that point on the council. I would my recommendation, if that works for all of you, is to modify the section where we can receive, the city attorney and the city manager can receive the complaint, but then it would be automatically passed on to the mayor. That would be my suggestion.
I think that we need some clarification also, is that when we do receive one, what is the procedure? You know, that goes, whatever, how you are gonna make final decision. But still, when we receive it, what do we do with it?
So when a council member receives it,
Whether it be verbal, whether it be email, what do we do?
mhm. Yeah, I mean, and again, I'm open to if you want the city manager and the city attorney to just be the collector of complaints,
I
then
think
you
that
can.
would be the best way.
So we could add language that says if council receives the complaint, they just automatically send it to the city manager and the city attorney, who then send it to the mayor. And then he or she decides what to do with that. I mean, is
That
that,
makes sense.
Yeah, I think, I agree with what you said, where it's just a standard practice that it isn't like up to your discretion or whether or not you think it's major or minor or should be shared. It's just, you know, the rule that it goes to the mayor.
Mhm.
Which
I mean, the mayor holds that responsibility of knowing, equitably handling all different complaints. But that's,
that's the, do you have knowledge of how other cities do that? Is it just the mayor that has the discretion over complaints or, I guess I'd be interested to know how other cities handle that.
yeah, I mean, the most recent other code of conduct that I looked at, it was similar, where it was that the mayor was the point of contact for complaints and they decided what to do with it, unless of course it was against the mayor, then it was the mayor pro tem. But that's just one other example. So this isn't unheard of because I've seen it before. We can do some research and see if there are some other ideas, if that's what council would like to see.
I mean. Yeah, but I would just like to see, you never have enough information.
Well, my reason for asking too is like, not that we get a ton of complaints or anything, but if we did, and then, you know, it's all on you, on your desk waiting for you to look.
But I mean, that
through,
is
you know.
one of the
So, yeah.
jobs of the mayor. So I
Yeah.
mean, it's,
Mhm.
when you're signing up, you're signing up for the good stuff and the bad stuff. So, I'm more than willing to go ahead and leave things the way they are and just continue, current practice, but if you want more information, that's fine too. I am the only one, soon will be the only one at large. So, I mean, I think that makes a little bit of sense too. The public, like it or not, the public thinks the mayor has more power than they really do. So, I mean, I think this is just an area that makes sense just to leave alone.
I would. Just to go back to what I said, with the change of it being standard practice, that it's not like up to you and the manager to determine if it goes to the mayor, that it goes to the mayor as a standard.
Yeah.
And I think that if it was something illegal, obviously you're,
Yeah, and if it's,
so you're gonna let him know, you're gonna let the mayor know this is illegal.
Yeah.
And the mayor's gonna say, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I did think of a scenario now that maybe Paul and I would actually be able to determine a course of action is if, say, a staff member had a sexual harassment complaint against a council member, then we could take some legal.
That's on a different.
Yeah. So there are, I was trying to think of examples of where we could actually take action, and that's one example. So I guess it's not unheard of that would happen. So what I hear, and I heard a lot, so tell me if this is right. So standard practice would be that if a council member receives a complaint about any other council member, they will send it to city manager and city attorney, who will send it to the mayor. If anyone else receives a complaint against a council member, they would send it to city attorney and city manager, who would send it to the mayor. So the mayor makes the ultimate decision, where we're just kind of the recipients. And
Right, and it's just a decision whether to go ahead and do the investigation. It's not fulfillment of what happens to the person. That will come back to the council if the investigation is done.
I mean, there's other, besides an investigation, if, there are other things the mayor could do. So the mayor could have a conversation with the other council member personally or as a colleague. So, I mean, there's other courses of action that the mayor could decide to do, or could bring it to council for discussion. That's also there. If that's how we leave the code of conduct, that would also be their option. So it's really up to the mayor to just kind of decide next steps, whatever that might be.
I mean, are you okay with like discussing something? Sure. If I did something.
I can talk to anybody.
I kind of like that, you know, you just have it one on one.
With a lot of times these complaints, so an investigation we would do if there's, he said, she said, facts that aren't clear, and that we can't really make that determination. Sometimes you can just have a conversation and hear the other side of the story and then understand that maybe the complaint is unfounded or not unfounded, So what a year is. Yeah, so if a council member receives a complaint, it will be sent, if anyone receives a complaint, including a council member, it goes to the mayor, city manager and the city attorney, they give it to the mayor, the mayor decides what to do next. And that can be any of those things I mentioned or whatever else. Okay. Okay, are we good? Do I have? I think I have
The only
three.
thing that I would add is I wouldn't want anybody else to be in my shoes. And I have been blindsided in the past when I was the mayor pro tem and there was an issue with the mayor. I felt like we didn't follow proper protocol and I wouldn't want anybody else to be in that position. So I would suggest also the mayor at least having that meeting with the mayor pro tem. That is also part of the duties of the mayor pro tem to be able to discuss. Cause again, just personal reasons, lived experience, I wouldn't want anybody else to have to go through that, be completely blindsided.
Do you mean if the mayor receives a complaint, he should always talk to the mayor pro tem about it, or only if it's about the mayor pro tem?
I think once you reach the step that, okay, we need to do something about it, and that's why I laughed, because we've had several complaints. And sometimes when I read your emails that I get, I'm thinking like, what the hell? Like, do I really need to spend my weekend reading this? Yeah, I wish I could write a book and just, I'll save that for when I retired. So I'm thinking like that type of thing, obviously I don't want the mayor to discuss it, but when it's something that, hey, this is like a situation that is borderline lawsuit, then why not discuss with the mayor pro tem? But I mean, for nonsense, stuff that, oh, somebody stole the cookie from the cookie jar, like, no, the mayor can handle that on his own. That kind of a thing, I guess, hopefully you understand. I don't want to go into so much detail. But yeah, hopefully you get it. You just can't say a lot.
But I mean, so if we got a complaint, we would all know about it anyways, but it's still his discretion whether he does something with it or not. Yeah.
Well, that's not, we didn't include that in that, so we did not include that every council member would receive the complaint. That's not in it as it's written now, and it's not what we've been discussing. It could be included, but right now it would just be, the only people that would know are the person who receives the complaint,
Okay.
city manager, city attorney, and then the mayor. It's not written into the code of conduct that it will then be distributed to all of council.
Hasn't been done in the past.
It's been done when a member of the public sends it to sends it to multiple council members, then we will distribute it to all of the council because they should have all the same information. But if the protocol is, we receive, whether it's an anonymous complaint or just a complaint, it would be like this, but
Are there times when a council member wouldn't know that somebody filed a complaint against them, like where it's kept confidential?
I mean, in the scenario that we're talking, in the process we're talking about, we have not included informing the person who's complained against. We could include that if it's,
Mhm.
I mean, it's up to you all whether,
I think, other than just clarifying a few things, I think leaving the procedure the way it is probably the best course. That's how.
I say be transparent, include everybody. And if I have accusations against me, I would want to know. If I knew there was accusations against Councilmember Ortiz, I know she would want to know. So include everyone. Be transparent.
other thoughts on that?
I am leaning kind of that way as well, like I feel like if there's an allegation of misconduct by any of us, that us being colleagues up here not only do we have a right to know if it's against us to, defend ourselves, but that we should know that about our fellow council members sitting up here, because really, it doesn't just affect, if I'm accused of something, they're not gonna just be talking about me. It's a reflection of the city council, like we represent one body as a whole, so I do see that side of it where it does affect us all, so it would make sense for all of us to know.
Might affect if you're trying to do an investigation or something, information is not voting, it just would jeopardize the
Really?
investigation.
Yeah, I mean, investigation again is to find out, to distill the facts. And so, what's out there is maybe the facts and maybe not. So I don't know that it would necessarily impede an investigation. That makes sense.
Any kind of investigation, anything like that, you'd have to share it with the other party anyway, so you have to do that in court.
Well, no, I mean, typically investigations are not conducted in the same way as something that would be in court. So it's usually unbiased in that you hire a third party who's, not in this room, and that person interviews everybody, and the people interviewed keep what they've said to the investigator confidential. So only that one person really hears all of the story. And so they then make findings based on what they've learned from everybody they spoke with. Does that help?
Yeah.
I think the question is whether or not you think, so it sounds like I two of you think it's a good idea for all council members to receive complaints against any one council member. And is there a third? Yeah.
I think it kind of depends, it's hard to do because it kind of depends on what it is, what the allegation is. I mean, some of them can be very sensitive and you probably don't want that information. I don't know.
So easy to get things.
I think we do have a right to know, but at the same time, like, when do we not sure?
I have reservations about giving it to everyone because sometimes there's some pretty sensitive information there that you don't want leaked out to the public.
That's what I guess
It's at all.
names or.
Well, maybe if we do that, you get, I mean, it's strange things happen and elections and all that kind of stuff, and I don't know. Temptation there, I mean, it just seems.
What'd you say?
Well, could we do that as an attorney-client confidential document?
I don't think that would necessarily be appropriate. So attorney-client privilege is, your attorney advising you, and complaints against a council member are generally public information, which is why we haven't considered those in closed session. The last few have been in open session because the public has a right to know when their representatives may be conducting misconduct. So I couldn't guarantee that I could receive a complaint which came to me from someone who is not my client. So in that communication is not privileged, and then forwarded to you and then make it privileged. I don't see that being a viable option.
I still stick by my original argument. Maybe with the way it's been currently working is the best way.
So I guess to get a better picture, Jennifer, I'm all looking at the clock. The emails the complaints you've been receiving, because there've been a lot that you've been sharing with us, all of us have seen those complaints, right? So what I'm asking for is already there.
The ones I forwarded to you,
Missing quite a few.
well, the ones I forwarded to you are because all the other council members got them. And
That's the
so,
only way that they'll get them. In case, let's say I have a complaint against Councilmember Ann, and I send it to two other, then that's the only way you'll be able to share that information. But if I only send it to Ann, then that's the privilege there. You don't share it.
Well, it was, I mean, this is outside of attorney-client privilege. It's more the idea that if four council members receive information, I mean, it's not appropriate for the 1/5 council member to not have the same information as the other four. And so that's where this is not my decision to make, but I would weigh on the side of providing it to everybody. That would be my preference.
That's a specific situation, a specific type of situation.
I mean,
That-
I can't think of a scenario where. I mean, sometimes these things are uncomfortable, you know, like these complaints they're uncomfortable, but. Yeah, I especially have a hard time not providing it to the person who's complained against. Because just seems as though they should know.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, why I think so too, and then I hear the whole cliche, like, let's work as a team, but then, at the same time, let's hush about certain things, like, no, let's be transparent, let's share about everything. So for me, that's why I was just asking, or for clarification, those messages that you've sent to us, that's kind of like what I've been requesting already, right? That all of them, that every single one of the council gets those complaints.
Yeah, and that's where we're trying to just determine what council wants to do in terms of how are those handled, because we want them to be, we want it to be the same every time.
Yeah.
Like that's what's at the end of the day is important, is that it's the same, handled the same way every time.
So sort of in line with what you were saying about, not feeling quite right about not providing it at least to the person that the complaint is about. How would you feel about that, where it's the mayor and as a standard practice, the person who the complaint is about as well?
Okay. Okay, we can do that.
What would happen? I sent the complaint to Councilmember Martinez and it was about Councilmember Ortiz. So now it's 3 people know.
I think, well, that would be the exception, right? That would be where like what you're already doing gets done again, where you know that more than one of us got it, so then you just send it to all of us.
So that we can add that too, because it's like, where do you draw the line? Is it when 2 get it, or does it have to be 3, or, you know?
I think if anyone other than the person the complaint is about gets it, then it should go to everyone, because then it's like, oh, me and Rachel know about this complaint, and now, you know.
And the mayor will know.
No, and now we're gonna know, but they don't know, so. No. That just as a standard, if anybody other than the person the complaint is about, then everyone gets it. It's already out there to some of.
I think it kind of makes like a little bit more division amongst us when sleeping things and you knew and you didn't say, and I really don't, you know,
Don't do that.
go down the road like that. Just be open.
So we could provide it to everybody. But sounds like what we'll do is, okay,
Just to get an idea, how many complaints have we received this year? And not just talking about me, because I know I have the majority, but technically, how many complaints? Get an idea.
I mean, I don't know the number, but
10?
probably less than 10, I would say, less than 10.
10 that are formal, because you get them an email.
Yeah, and I guess I haven't seen any heard complaints that weren't email. Those are the only ones I could, or letter, but nothing verbal. Yeah. Less than 10, yeah, for sure. So to summarize,
Well,
if we receive a complaint, however it comes through, and it will be provided to the mayor and the council member against whom the complaint is, unless we know that another council member, aside from those 2, have also received it, in which case it will go to everybody.
Where's my?
We'll try to draft it in a way that it's clear. Anything else related to enforcement? Okay. And the last section is, well, also part of enforcement. I recommended a couple changes to the types of sanctions, just because I felt they were redundant. 1 and 2, to me, reprimand and censure are the same thing. And then loss of committee or liaison assignments is to me the same thing as removing from appointed committee, commission, or board. So I just consolidated those.
I think that makes sense.
But I'd like to see here, so when Councilmember Martinez was given a committee back, we did hear flack from the community. And so I think it was kind of, for me personally, I think it was kind of unfair to Councilmember Martinez and to the community, because we didn't have anything set on that as far as like, so when can we give something back to somebody? Is it supposed to be for life? You know, if it happens in the first 6 months and then they have no committees for 4 years that they're here, I don't think that that's
Should
good.
set a
Because there has to be a timeline, and I think it has to be something before council, because Councilmember Martinez not knowing when she's gonna be able to get meetings back,
Yeah,
then what is she doing? Not that
Yeah.
we're not doing anything, but what is she doing? Any one of it. And then the public needs to know that, because then right away they're questioning why, well, why? I thought this, I thought that, you know, but it was the discretion of the council at that time. And so however we voted, whatever, but I need clarification. I want to see clarification on that. That's, what are we doing? You know, is it 6 months? Is it a year? Do we revisit it in 6 months and say, okay, everything's good? You know, do we go back? I don't know.
yeah.
There's got to be something, and here there's nothing.
Yeah, we can either add language that says council, if council imposes any of these sanctions, they'll also determine how long the sanction will last, or we can add an actual amount of time to the code of conduct. So 6 months or a year, whatever you'd like that to look like. I mean, it may make sense to just leave it open-ended, where here it will say that council will make decide how long, and then when it comes up, you'll decide how long at that time, and maybe it depends on the egregiousness of the misconduct.
I like that, like kind of like probation, parole kind of a thing, like, we'll see if you're up first.
You did say it's kind of hard, you know how long you're gonna be there, but
Yeah,
But also going back to that, Jennifer, I've been asking, what is censored? And I know last time I had some of the commissioners in the audience that laughed, they thought it was funny. For me, it is funny because I don't even know how to respond to the public. Even up to this day, I don't know what censor to me is. Nobody explained it. Yeah, I do. I don't have a committee. I lost MST. Thank you, Rodriguez. I got the slap in the hand. I got publicly shamed. But what is censored? Do I get to go to public events? Do I get to answer community concerns, community emails? So for me, it's like I'm censored, then I need to step back for a little bit. And that was me. But the mentality of the audience, and then I even had input from one of the Parks and Recs person that was there going online and talking about, this is not what public censor means, because a lot of people thought once you censor Councilmember Martinez, she's out of the office. So a lot of people were like, what is she doing back, or what's going on? And so I want to know what is censored, because I've been using my card and I get emails and phone calls, and I'm like, well, I'm censored right now, but there's 4 other council members, the mayor, you could talk to them, because I don't even know what I could do and cannot do. I mean,
Yep.
So what is censored? Let's be more specific.
I'll tell you right now. Censure is a formal reprimand. That's it. So it's basically like council says, we don't think what you did is good. It's bad. That's it. So it doesn't limit your ability to do anything else, unless, of course, they impose some of these other sanctions, like removing from committees or losing your staff support or any of these other things. So censure, it doesn't last a period of time. It's just a moment in time where they acknowledge in public that you're being reprimanded, or a council member. And I mean, you'll notice these sanctions aren't particularly onerous. I mean, and the reason for that is you're all elected by the people. So your colleagues can't, they can't interfere with democracy and the people who voted you in office. So they can't remove, you can't remove another council member from office. You can't impose sanctions that are going to limit their ability to do what they were elected to do. So that's why these things aren't particularly bad, but it's because the court ultimately has decided over time that you were elected by the people, so only they can take you out of office through recall. So reprimand's just formal, or censure is just formal reprimand
In
It's-
public.
in public. It's a slap on the hand, basically. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, kind of like the Salem witch
So you can
trial.
do.
No, that was worse.
You can do work.
That was not a slap on the hand.
No, it was worse, but pretty much that, oh, look at Councilmember Martinez, that's it. But I wish just in the future we could be more specific, not to us, but to the audience, because I know a lot of people play that game with the audience, and it's like, yeah, censor means she's gonna be removed from office, and there was people within the city, so I just wanted, okay, give me the definition, what is censored? You don't want me to sit up here in the chair, I won't do it. You don't want me to take a break, I won't do it, but be specific. That's what I wanted, so. Thank you for that, that was helpful.
Really good to explain that and put that in there and what it is, because a lot of people did think that Councilmember Martinez was getting just kicked off council. It's like, no, it's
Yeah,
not gonna happen. It wouldn't happen to any of us, you know?
yeah, we can add more details in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That last one though, the other penalty that's maybe applicable under the circumstances. I feel like that's very broad. Like, what does that mean? What, can we get something more specific there so that it outlines what the parameters of that are, right? Because like you said, we cannot remove each other. There's a lot of limitations, but that leaves it so open that when the public is reading that because they want us to hold someone accountable, they're like, other penalties, you can enforce something else, but it's like, what falls under the scope of something else?
And to me, that falls into where somebody else involved and this gets involved and applies a penalty. Like, for example, if there's an FPPC violation, they step in and there's a penalty involved. Not necessarily something that we're imposing, but something else that may get imposed on the council member by an outside agency. That's what I think of when I read that.
Yeah, but no, what it says though, in the beginning of this is that the council may, in a public meeting, impose one of these, and the other
Yeah.
is under what we do. So that's why I feel like it's saying we do
So
something.
maybe we take that out and say there may be additional penalties as imposed by other agencies during the investigation. Or
Well,
something
if
like
it
that.
was meant to mean that, but that's what I want to know, like,
I mean, the way I read it, and I think you're right, it's very open-ended, probably intentionally. But I think it's something where it may be that the penalty or the misconduct dictates the penalty. So I mean, and I don't know why this came to mind, but what if a city council member, and this there could be other issues with this, but is driving intoxicated in a city vehicle? Like maybe they're no longer allowed to drive city vehicles. That's just the example that came to mind.
We gotta go out to state.
Yeah, yeah, it could be, but what I'm trying to convey is that it will be a penalty that's tied to the misconduct.
Right, but in that case, like maybe we require them that they repay for the vehicle that they get or something.
Yeah, that's what I mean, is I guess you just, that the penalty is determined by the misconduct, but we can take that out. We can leave it. It's really, it's sometimes nice to have an open-ended option. But also it does cause confusion.
I think it should probably just be left in there myself. It can be explained at the time. I mean, something somebody wants to do, impose something, we need to make sure that it's a legal thing to do and get it clarified and just do it at the time.
You never know.
Any other, so I see one for leaving it. Okay. The only other item that we haven't talked about that I think could potentially be added is a discussion of social media, how do city council members use social media. There's more and more law being passed that dictates that. So, it doesn't necessarily have to be in here because it's already, been determined by court cases. But if it would help council more clearly understand what they may and may not do with respect to social media, I think we could add a section about that.
Haven't we've received complaints about our social media.
That's too, so. Okay.
I'd also like to see maybe a presentation to the council and to my person and everybody else about what we can and can't do considering the number of new laws that have been passed.
Yeah, there was just a Supreme Court ruling, kind of a ruling. It was a remand, but about social media. So it'd probably be helpful to do a refresher. Yeah. Anything else?
All right, thank you very much. If there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you.